put out the.
All good. All right.
Okay.
So we have with us today on Black Bear News a longtime viewer. The channel's only been going for 2 years, so long time relatively. But since the beginning, since I was on another channel, this is Val, otherwise known as ValhalaFiveSix YouTube handle. And so, do you want to just introduce yourself, Val? You kind of gave your credentials a couple seconds ago. Do you want to go?
Okay.
Give people that.
Watch your show, among others. Hambone, Beckwith. I'm in the clan, man.
Yeah.
My occupation is I sell weather equipment and other electronic equipment online. I have a background in physics, astronomy, social psychology, and psychiatry. I worked 10 years in several different psychiatric hospitals.
Okay.
And that's my background.
Okay. Yeah. So you have a extensive scientific background. So you're not Joe the plumber.
No, I'm not a neophyte. No, I'm not a novice, man.
There's nothing wrong with being a plumber, by the way.
Not at all. And that's part of what we're going to talk about.
Right. I'm just Kevin the musician. So anyways, so you were, before we jump in, I guess, to the meaty meat of what we were going to talk about, you wanted to bring up the idea of climate science or scientists being part of like Bernie Sanders' platform, Green New Deal or whatever. So you want to go into that?
They discuss their plans, their climate plans, and Bernie puts out, this is my point by point climate plan. And for the rest of us, we always talk about protesting, cutting back, cutting emissions, but we rarely hear from the scientists. And since this is such an important thing, it seems to me that the candidates would already have put together a climate science team,
right?
And say, this is my team of scientists, and he might even have propose when he gets elected that I'm going to have a department of climate science, not staffed by lawyers, but staffed by scientists. Current EPA, they got lawyers. What do lawyers know about science?
Right. Well, yeah, and that would make sense to me to have. I think would add legitimacy to the proposals, right? Because all of the Green New Deal proposals and Bernie Sanders' plan, it's all met with like lunacy and
right.
It's crazy, radical left-wing communist socialism, blah blah blah, right? Or these people and their climate change. But if you had a panel, say, of climate scientists who could do, you could bring in. I think so. Bernie Sanders has like a pretty on it like social media team, right? They create all these videos and stuff for Facebook. So if you had climate scientists, who at Paul Beckwith or whoever, Kevin Anderson or people, people from around the country, even Michael Mann, anybody who's,
big, well-known,
doing climate change, saying like, look, this is the deal, this is where we're at, and Bernie Sanders has the most extensive plan or whatever. We're part of his team advising him on his plan. I think would lend credibility.
Major credibility, and the voters would be able to see, who's on whose team, who they like the best, who's got the best. Seems like to me the candidates would be rushing to get the top, the cream of the crop scientists on their team and have them on their team.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, I think that there are some people within the government or some people within power who understand the severity of the situation. I think Bernie Sanders understands the severity of the situation. I think AOC understands the severity of the situation. So, but you can't, when you just have them saying, this is, climate change is a big problem, but they're the only, they're the only ones
Right.
saying those words in front of millions of people, right? Like,
Right. And they're not scientists.
With the acknowledgement, just like a sideways acknowledgement of the scientists say, if you bring a scientist to a rally, bring
the way I would do it would be like we discussed.
Bring Bill Nye to a rally.
Well, Bill Nye would be perfect for the team.
Yeah.
I would do it the way they introduced Mercury astronauts in the movie The Right Stuff, with a lot of hype, and they introduced each one of them, John Glenn, Alan Shepard, and those people became household names. So if they do that, a lot of these, we all know who Michael Mann and these people are, but the general public may not be that cognizant of who these people are. And I imagine pretty soon a lot of these climate scientists would become well known throughout the country.
Well, and it's amazing that they aren't already. I actually see Paul Beckwith's videos once in a while on Facebook floating around, but I don't see any other climate scientists other than a Bill Nye, who's just kind of a communicator, right? A science communicator.
Yes, he's a science communicator,
right? And that's why there are so many channels dedicated to communicating climate change, because you don't have scientists you don't have Guy McPherson's, you don't have Paul Beckwith's, you don't have people out there being mainstream, well-known. Like, people don't know who these people are. They're like, who? They're what? I have to, you have to search the recesses of YouTube or get
Absolutely.
into, it's
in a way, I don't want to go off on a different tangent at all. And I hate to say this, but I think this is one of the failures of the climate scientist, is to have, you do like, what, 2 or 3 videos a day?
I do one a day, basically.
Okay, one a day, but the climate scientists have failed to carry the water in communicating. There's a few who do regular YouTube videos, such as DRK Strong, who is an ex-NASA climate scientist. And he does periodic videos. He's retired, maybe once every month or so.
Right.
Thunderfoot, Potholer. Potholer's does, that's not his specialty as climate scientist, but he does very extensive and detailed point by point about climate scientists, and refutes climate change deniers such as Tony Heller.
Yeah.
Very, very clear. But as a rule, they really do not put out a lot of videos, the climate scientists.
No, they don't. And here's the other problem, is that I think the other role of climate communicators, or people who should be carrying the water for this, or people who can, like, you have celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, or
and that's good. That's good.
Or what's his face? Why can't I remember his first name? Guy who played Han Solo.
Yeah, Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. I was gonna call him George Harrison.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford. George Harrison Ford. Great climate communicator. So yeah, you have these, kind of celebrity people that are out there talking about climate change, but still, it's like they don't. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's got to be a way to bridge the gap between the weight of the information, and the way that a lot of scientists come across is it's very hard to follow. It's very
right. And another problem is they say that 97% of the scientists agree with man-made climate change. The problem is you don't see them. So, the people don't even know who these 97% are.
Right.
So there's a big gap there.
Right. And there needs to be kind of a, like a master list, or like and I'm sure that there's something like that out there, or some kind of aggregate of, there are actually, websites out there that are aggregating like severe climate events or severe weather events. And I wonder if there's like Faster Than Expected, which is another good blog site. I haven't actually been there in a while, aggregating kind of news stories about climate change.
Right.
Dar Jamail kind of did that with his releases and truth out. But it would be cool if there was like a site where you could just point, here's the or here's the Twitter feed of all these climate scientists or whatever, just some kind of like focal point where people could find this, like, here it is, here's the information, here's how easily accessible it is. I don't know.
Yeah, what's the liberal online rag, the Huffington Post?
Yeah.
A Huffington Post for eco crisis and climate. Quick little news bites that you can grab.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's sites out there that do this, but I wonder how widespread there are. Is there a site called, called Climate Watcher?
A suggestion I would make, I checked the Drudge Report, which of course is not a progressive site, mostly because it's very simple, you can scan it completely. I don't know if you've ever gone on there, but at any rate.
No. Or wait, that's wrong. I have been on there.
Okay, but it's just a very simple interface, which is something we're going to talk about later about interfaces.
Right.
But yeah, so that's just I think a big gap missing, that these candidates have not announced climate science team.
Right.
And maybe changing EPA to a Department of Climate Scientists. And the thing I absolutely hate is just they're staffed with lawyers, and replace the lawyers with scientists.
Or why not? That would actually be a great policy proposal from Bernie Sanders, is to create a Department of Climate Science, or create something that's freestanding, right? Its own department. So you can't really. It's like the EPA. You can gut, and you can kind of like. You can go in there and put like, whatever, not real people in there, robots in there or whatever, like, corporate fossil fuel robots or lobbyists or lawyers into the EPA. And give them a climate science department, like, you'd like to have that staffed with scientists,
right?
Or, the James Hansons of the world, and
absolutely like not a Rick Perry. He's a friggin' lawyer, politician. What does he know about climate science?
Not a lot. I'm sure he knows more than he's letting on, though. That's I can't believe that all these people aren't fully briefed on the severity of climate change. And they are briefed by the DOD, puts out a report every single year, like, this is where we're at. This is how bad climate change is a threat. They put this report out every year. So these people have to know.
Right.
You
absolutely.
You can't not know this information. I don't know.
But they're still not climate scientists. And, they may, and even though they may be told this information, they may still reject it.
Right. Reject it, or, they're just running whatever propaganda they have to run in order to support the dominant narrative or whatever. So, I think that's a great idea. And I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where when somebody comes up with that on the internet, other people hopefully will pick it up. I actually do believe that some of the campaigns do listen to alternative media, right? They're very clued into what's going on YouTube. They're very, very clued into what's happening on Twitter, right? So if there's a groundswell of support for something, or if there's an overwhelming support for a certain, idea, like, they will respond in kind. They'll see, they see what's going on. So, maybe we can just send this out there, a little.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. And maybe they'll pick up on the idea. Maybe we can get some other channels to talk about the same thing. I'd like to put it out on Twitter myself, or maybe on a more regular basis. But that's a great idea. I think that's something that they should be putting forth, right away. But I still, I'm at least on some level, minutely encouraged that. I think Bernie Sanders has created a big space for a lot of conversations that people weren't willing to have even 3 years ago.
Right.
And even though he doesn't get the chance to really bring up climate change that much, it's still suppressed, you know, in the debates and is suppressed on the media. But him being, you know, a candidate who states this is our biggest problem, I think, you know, he creates a lot more awareness around it, and he creates space for people to go, oh yeah, you know, I actually saw some statistic recently that's saying a lot of Republicans they actually understand that climate change is real, and especially
Yes.
young Republicans. There's a lot of younger. I think this was the statistic, is that younger Republicans are not the deniers that the older Republicans
That
are.
their
So
daddies are.
yeah, they're like, yeah, dude, climate change is freaking real. Can we, you know, move into the 21st century around this? You know, like, can we
Yeah.
bring our policies up to date? Can we have some kind of party acknowledgement and you know, address the situation as like a policy platform? I mean, you know, I don't see that happening real soon, but I mean, at least it's there. And I think it's because you have leaders on the left, which are kind of pushing they're pushing the whole conversation to the left or right. I don't know what it looks like on the screen to you, but yeah, right. So they're pushing the conversation to the left, and that's, you know, that's bringing everybody else, the right wing and everybody else, to the left. So shifting the Overton window, as it might be known. But yeah, so I agree totally. You want to before we move on to this other subject, if you do you have anything else to say about?
No.
I kind of wanted to just kind of blurt out a few headlines. Apparently today in France, there's a massive strike, December 5th. Basically, there's a huge strike. It's going to bring the country to a standstill. And I think it's over pensions. So, you know, France seems to be leading the way as far as showing other countries how it is, how it's done, as far as like shutting things down and getting people's attention.
They have a history of that going back.
They do have a history of that.
Revolution.
And I actually heard that probably, I don't know, 20 years ago, somebody said, like, look, this is what happens in France when they don't like something. All the truck drivers get all their trucks on the road and they just park, and they just shut everything down. And like, they'll shut it down for a week, 2 weeks, however long it takes. And then the government is like, oh crap. Okay. Yeah. We got nowhere else to go. So
it's in their blood.
Yeah. We got to give in. So give it up for the people of France.
Yeah.
And something else that I've been seeing. Okay. So I've been kind of hearing this around the edges about the Hong Kong protests being, you know, something that's backed by the U.S. as far as like a regime change situation, right? The way that they're backing the coup in Bolivia and the way that they're trying to back a coup in Venezuela. You know, basically, so I haven't actually seen enough about this or studied enough about the situation to really like make a comment one way or the other. I've just been reporting on the fact that there's protests in Hong Kong. But apparently it looks like they're being fueled by like fascist or more right-wing, you know, regime change kind of forces. And so today I see this headline that Ukrainian fascists joined the Hong Kong insurgency. So what happened in the Ukraine was that, you know, we backed the overthrow of the Ukrainian government in 2014. And that was helped along by basically neo-Nazis. We funded neo-Nazis. And, you know, and people, you know, whatever. People want to like kind of, they have super short memories and they want to forget that whole thing happened under Obama, and that, you know, that we completely did this to the Ukrainian people.
It started with the 2013 Maidan protest.
Right.
Maidan Square in Kyiv. And it was fueled by U.S. ambassador.
Right. Yeah.
She even claimed she made cookies for the protesters.
Right. Okay.
Oh, you remember that?
I think I don't know if I remember the cookies part, but that's hilarious.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And and another interesting point, you know, to bring up, maybe to tie it into this whole Ukraine gate thing that's going on, is that the Ukrainian government actually lent its weight to Hillary Clinton as a candidate, and they were vocally backing her. So like I don't.
Yeah.
Now they have a new president in place, whatever, and this whole, the rest.
Mess.
We all know the rest. But anyway, so some of these neo-Nazis have found their way to Hong Kong. Found their way to Hong Kong. So how did they get there? Why are they there? They were just so inspired by these protests that they were like, let's go to Hong Kong and cause some trouble.
Yeah.
So I still I know that like Proudhon and some other commenters are like trying to wave the flag of like, hey guys, this isn't a bottom up protest. This isn't a grassroots thing. It's something that's been fueled by U.S. interests, by more neoliberal interests, empirical interests. So there's just an interesting wrinkle of what's going on in Hong Kong.
The CIA has 50 years of expert experience at this.
Yes, they do. They're quite adept at all of this stuff, and it's amazing to me. I mean, I saw a like a meme or a GIF the other day, and it was this kid standing in the stands of a basketball game with his hand out, and the players were walking by, and he was like trying to get a high five, and they all just ignored him. They all just walked by him, and it was like super sad. And the caption above it said like, this is what you look like cheering on billionaires who don't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, yes. And this is also what you look like repeating Russiagate fucking bullshit and Ukrainegate bullshit. And this is what the CIA doesn't give a fuck about you. This is totally their doing. And they created this whole shit. And you're like, yeah, Russia. They're like, thank you.
They are experts at manipulation.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they do.
And they've brainwashed a whole like strata of the U.S. population into thinking something happened in 2016 that didn't happen, And it's funny, Hillary Clinton was on Howard Stern recently talking about Russia.
Oh, she was?
Yeah, Howard Stern did a 2-hour interview of Hillary Clinton. It just came out like today.
Damn.
And she basically said that Bernie Sanders was backed by the Russians. Like,
oh, she did not.
Just red baiting the hell out of everybody. Talking about how, she sees what so the reality is that the Hillary Clinton campaign created this whole Russian thing as a foil for why she lost the campaign. And it was, it was cooked up in a meeting, like between, was it Robbie Mook and some other people?
Right.
So it was actually something that, they did it to draw attention away from the fact that they are the Russian like conspirators, right? They got money from Russia. They sold uranium to Russia. All that is true. That's not a right-wing conspiracy. That's actually fucking fact. Yep. So like, you can't actually conspiracy that away. It's actually true. They were totally like in bed with the Russians, and they made this whole story to like go like, oh, we don't want anybody to look at us. So, make it about Trump, or whatever. And people just believe the shit, like
eat it up.
They eat it the hell up. Anyways, sorry, political rant there for a second. And so the meat of the thing that I wanted to talk about, or you wanted to talk about, we both wanted to talk about. Right. You brought up something in the comment section, or it was during a live chat, I think, right?
Yes, you were doing a live show. Yes,
you were doing a live chat, and you dropped in the name of Professor Donald Hoffman.
Yeah,
about conscious agent theory, or
conscious agent theory. Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, what is that? That caught my attention and caught my eye, and we didn't, obviously, the stream of consciousness being what it is, or the stream of the chat being what it was, we couldn't really get into it. But I watched a few videos of his and tried to absorb. It's pretty dense, as far
radical.
as like, it's radical, and it's very like,
some of it's very extreme.
It's extreme, and it's also, it's based in like quantum mechanics. And so it's like when you start wading into that, and he just, shoots out a bunch of theories or a bunch of like equations, and you can just be
Right.
watching it like, I don't know what that is, or like, whoa, I had it, you have to really digest it and like
Yes.
roll it over.
It,
So
it
I'm
took me about 3 videos of his. I'm currently reading his book to get what he's talking about.
okay. And so, well, so you have a scientific background,
Right.
and you seem to have more knowledge about this. And I, instead of just speaking off the cuff or trying to ingest like what he's trying to talk about, and because I've got my attention on a lot of other things,
Right.
I thought it would be, I thought it'd be a good idea to bring you on and
Right.
kind of like have you explain it, and maybe we can just kind of talk about it and what it means, what this conscious agent theory or this reality interface theory means to climate change. And so I wanted to get your
That's
thoughts
it.
on it.
How this applies to the eco crisis, and to find out from the professor that is there anything that his theory is applicable to, yes, no, or maybe.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
and
my.
yeah, one of the things that he said in one of his talks, or one of the things that was brought up, was if reality is an interface and you see a train coming at you,
Right.
Which actually you can totally apply. I think it's very simple. A simple jump from that analogy to climate change is that, you see a train coming at you, you do want to get out of the way, right? Like you don't.
What he says is he does not take the train literally, but he takes it seriously.
Right. He takes the
But
threat of the train seriously.
but
Right.
but before we get into that's where he is going into the conscious agent theory. I wanted to bring up fitness payoffs.
Right. Okay.
That's the
And then
first part.
also gets into evolutionary
Right.
biology and evolutionary theory,
Right.
which
So
is, yeah.
so basically, we always talk about on your. Go ahead.
What I wanted you to do, actually, could you just kind of briefly explain what he's talking about, or briefly give like just a brief description of
Sure.
what he's
Sure.
saying?
Fitness payoffs is what's included in all organisms to survive. Okay, in all organisms, from an ant to a person.
The selfish gene, as Richard Dawkins
Yes, the
kind of
selfish
described
gene.
it. Yeah.
You are programmed to find food, to eat, water.
Right.
Okay, these are fit. You're programmed to find a mate, to pass your genes.
Right.
These are all primary encoded into. We'll just talk about humans, and it's still going on right now. In humans' distant past, an elk or a caribou, game meat is their fitness payoff. Okay,
Right.
you take down an elk, you eat, and you survive longer. Right now, the current fitness payoff is money.
Right.
Okay, that is what everybody's going after to survive.
Right.
When we discuss on this show all the time, why do these people continue to consume and buy and build? And well, it's all it has to do with fitness payoff.
Right. And yeah, that's totally right on the money. Yeah.
So, for instance, if you're a contractor, if you don't build houses or shopping malls, then you don't make any money. Your wife leaves you. You become one of the homeless in the streets of LA.
Right.
So this fitness payoff for the contractor to go out there, work, make money, get more contracts. That's kind of replacing the caribou or elk of the past.
Right. Okay? Exactly.
And so we're trying to,
or the domestic, the livestock, or the stored grains, or the.
Absolutely. So basically, we keep discussing on how we need to um, um, deconsumerize people, get people to stop in their incessant need to go out and buy things, sell things, build things, mine, frack. That's all programmed. That is all programmed in the organism. Okay.
Right.
So it's a hard nut to crack to get people to slow down or stop.
Right. Right. Yeah. And as you know, I mean, it's a well-worn kind of analogy that money is a symbol of, we use money as a symbol of it. Money symbolizes worth, right? It's worth $10 is worth, $20 is worth, your zeros are worth.
But most importantly, you are programmed, encoded in your genes to, this is your top priority, is
Right.
obtaining the fitness payoff of money.
Right.
And this goes further into Hoffman's theory. Money used to be like, coins or paper.
Right.
Now it's digital. Okay.
Right.
So you look on your bank account or PayPal and you can see your money going up and down in digits. It's just a fiction. Right. It's an icon. Right. It's not real.
Right.
It's real in the sense that it gives you economic power, but it's just a fiction. It's just residing in computers at PayPal.
Right. Well, and also to get into something that he's trying to say, I think, and what you're alluding to. So, the basic premise that I got from his talk was that, that reality, everything that we see or touch or use or whatever is an icon, is a symbol.
Yes.
That makes it, so on your desktop, you have your icon or you have your folders or whatever, and these are symbols. These are simplified symbols that represent something that's much more complicated. Right. They're supposed to be simple.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be simple. So, and he was also using the analogy of like the bug that was attracted to a bumpy beer bottle because it looks like another beetle.
Yeah, let me do that one.
Right. So
basically in Australia, a popular Australian beer is in a brown kind of speckled bottle, and people would throw them out of their cars as they drink it. Dead soldier, they throw it out. Right. Well, this Australian beetle, the bottles look exactly like the females. Right. So the male beetles would mate with the bottles.
Right.
Okay, because their icon was this brown speckled bottle that looked exactly like a female. So the problem was that the bugs were going extinct. So the Australian government had to ban these bottles because it was causing this insect to go extinct because it was looking at an icon. It was fooled by this beer bottle.
Right, and there are other examples of that in nature. The orchid with the dragonfly, or is it the orchid with the dragonfly or the orchid with the wasp, or one of the bugs? But orchids are shaped in a certain way to attract bugs to come pollinate. So the bug comes and copulates with the orchid. But they're just a symbol of procreation, right? The symbol of fitness.
Right. Fitness. Yes, that's the key word, fitness, to remember.
Right.
Fitness payoffs.
Right. And so, but it's an interesting, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around what is it that's underlying this, and I've actually, I've read some other, metaphysical type books in the past explaining that there's not, our reality is actually not, things aren't solid, there's things are made up of molecules, or things are made up of other materials. So if you actually looked if you could really convince yourself to look at the world in a different way, like nothing, everything would be impenetrable. You could be able to, put your hand through a wooden table, or you'd be able to, move concrete blocks, or, and you would be able to like basically defy the laws of physics or energy as we know it, because
Kevin,
we're
discussing some esoteric things.
Right.
I want to make clear that the professor and his credentials, scientific credentials, Professor Donald Hoffman, he is at the University of California at Irvine. He holds like 3 different appointments in multiple departments
Right.
at the university.
Right.
He has over 50 peer-reviewed scientific papers.
Right.
Okay, this guy is no lightweight.
Yeah.
He is a top echelon scientist. So when you were discussing these things, they sound very extreme, very
Right.
radical to people.
Right.
And
more woo woo than
right. And I want to make clear that
right.
word that you just used, woo woo, is a scientific term.
Right.
That's to describe kind of pseudoscience or
right. Right.
So scientists actually use that word woo woo.
Yeah. No, I've heard it quite often.
So they've like accused say Deepak Chopra, of being woo woo.
Right.
So that's just a scientific term. I'm going to try to give an analogy here to how this relates to climate science. Okay. How I think it relates. Say that you're a pre-technical tribe at the base of a volcano.
Right.
Okay. You're in this tribe. You have shamans and witch doctors, and some changes start to happen, such as the volcano starts spewing lava, and there's angry clouds, and there's earth tremors.
Right.
So the tribe says the volcano mountain is angry.
Right.
What do you do? And their science, the science that they use, is the angry clouds, the lava, the earth tremors. That's their graphs and charts that are telling them that something is askew.
Right.
So they decide to get their chief scientist, the shaman. You have to fix this problem. So he says he's going to do some incantations, maybe throw some sacrifices into the volcano to appease the gods. But what they don't know, the underlying reality is there's a huge magma chamber underneath the volcano.
Right.
So throwing sacrifices or whatever is probably not going to fix the problem.
Right.
Unless it's just by coincidence that the volcano decides to subside.
Right.
And they may think, hey, throwing these sacrificial goats did it.
Right.
But what I'm suggesting is that we may not know all the reality of the eco crisis and climate science, that there may be something underlying that we're not even aware of.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if so again, to bring it back to the analogy of the train, and I think that also kind of alludes to what some deniers kind of trying to use other reality, like trying to find some underlying realities of why climate change is happening. Like climate change is happening, but it's not man-made, right? It's because the earth is getting hotter, or the solar system's getting hotter, or the sun's getting hotter, or you know what I mean? It's
right. Okay.
Magma is coming, literally magma is coming out of the ocean in vents. That's
right. Right.
So, those are their, attempts to kind of push it into an underlying thing of, yeah. And that's kind of where it gets a little bit like,
okay, let me explain the deniers. Okay. The deniers are programmed with fitness payoffs. So, they may be, a doctor, lawyer, construction, whatever. Okay. And so they're smart people. They're not stupid, but they're
right.
Their fitness payoffs, they are programmed to see that, and they reject the science information because they are so focused on these fitness payoffs.
Sure.
And they come up with rationalizations such as this is socialist or trying to collect more taxes. They
Right.
come up with rationalizations to deny the science because they are totally focused on getting their fitness payoffs.
Right.
Totally.
And,
So
well, and that's what climate change threatens. You know, the reality of climate change threatens all of the symbols that we see as fitness.
right,
Right.
right,
So, you know,
right.
having a job and having, you know, taking a certain amount of vacations and having this kind of car and living in this
Money,
house and,
social status, you
right.
know,
And all of those things
all
are fitness payoffs, but we're told, you know, when somebody tells you none of those fitness payoffs are real anymore, or those are actually the reverse of fitness payoffs, are actually leading, you know, in the long term, it's, you know, not fitness at all. It's
right,
death,
right,
right?
right. So right there, that explains the difficulty in getting people to see the light and make changes, because they're going to have to say, there. One of the things that Hoffman says is that it's not that we only see part of reality, okay, or some of reality. He says that we see none of it. So what evolution has programmed in are these fitness payoffs. Okay, that's what they see.
Right.
Okay, they do not see the further, deeper down reality, such as, you know, the temperatures. They are totally programmed to this. Well, and let me say, Kevin, I went to Nashville for Thanksgiving. I was forced to. I didn't want to go, but they told me they'd excommunicate me from the family if I didn't, so I had to. I didn't want to burn the gas and all that.
Right.
But the traffic in Nashville, it was, I mean, you're in LA. I would say it was LA traffic in Nashville.
Okay.
I mean, all these people, and they're not thinking about climate change or eco crisis.
Right.
They're thinking about the fitness payoff of the Thanksgiving meal, the family, you know, the fitness payoffs you get from reconnecting with your family. They're not thinking about the damage to the environment at all. And then the next day, Black Friday was even worse. I had to do some business.
Right.
I think this was the biggest Black Friday ever.
Right.
Are people thinking about the eco crisis? They're thinking about their fitness payoffs.
Right.
Okay, you know, getting that exercise band,
Right.
you know, to track your, you know, fitness.
Right. Right.
You know, big screen TVs.
Right.
You know, impress the wannabe girlfriend with a big gift.
Right.
That's a fitness payoff.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to, you know, men will stupidly buy very expensive engagement rings,
right,
to get the fitness payoff of the woman that passes genes to the next generation.
Right. Yeah, totally. And yeah, and in the case of climate change, you have to change the icons or change what the fitness payoffs are.
Right, right.
And I think that's actually on some level that's happening.
That could be done, and that's what we need to question Dr. Hoffman about. Could we change the fitness icons to something that's more copacetic with the current ecological situation?
Right. Right.
And
how would you go about doing that? Changing.
How would you go about doing that?
Right.
And I didn't think about that, but that's a good one that you brought up there. How could you change the desktop interface icons to not look at job or you're buying real estate,
truck, right? Yeah.
And change those icons to something that is more compatible with the current situation that we're in right now.
Yeah, and on some level, you'd have to perhaps change the fitness icons back to icons that used to be icons before they, you know what I mean, like having some land, or, you know, having some food stored away, or
that is probably,
bicycle, or what, whatever it might be. Like not,
yeah,
well, so here's an interesting thing. Here's a really interesting thing in the modern lexicon. There's a meme, or there's a thing going around, an actual meme, not a Richard Dawkins meme, not a picture on Facebook meme. There's a meme going around about simplifying your life, or being
right.
simple, or like throwing everything away, or getting rid of everything, right? And that's actually been around for a while, for a few decades. But it's like all of that entire meme is kind of crafted in a way so that it actually convinces people to buy their way into simplicity, right? So
Right,
I'm going
right.
to throw all this stuff away, and I'm just going to buy this really like simple little table for my living room, or whatever it might be, right? Like I'm going to throw everything out of my room. So, okay, throw away all the stuff that we spent energy on making, and then go out and like get more stuff that, that is an icon for simple life, simple
An
living.
icon.
Look at,
That's exactly it.
So
And that is what,
there's actually an icon out there for like
yeah,
simplifying your life, or having less stuff, but it actually means having more stuff. It's
right.
actually coming from a place of like, I have so much money and I have so much stuff that I had to get rid of all my stuff and make it look like I didn't have that much stuff. So it's like, it's very convoluted. It's a convoluted meme, but
Absolutely. And what you brought up is perfect to ask Dr. Hoffman, because I didn't think about it, of changing the icons.
right.
And could that possibly forward people changing, reversing their current rat race, getting on the hamster wheel, making money, buying a house, buying a car, buying a truck, just this focus, total focus on
Yeah.
fitness protocols.
Right.
And if you don't get the fitness protocols in organisms, you go extinct.
Well, there's two things that interesting things that he brought up in some of his talks that I wanted to possibly flesh out. There's one was in the fitness regime, in the fitness fitness regime of procreation, right? Or the genes seeking fitness. Genes that sought truth never even made it into the evolutionary thing.
Right.
And I was a little perplexed as to what the gene would be like that sought truth, because as a species, or as a in an intellectual manner, or as a species that has evolved over centuries, we have as a whole and individually sought truth. And that truth, that and my analogies for this are a few, but he brought up the idea that at one time, the idea, and it's funny because we make fun of flat earthers, but at one time the entire human population thought the earth was flat, until somebody said no, it's not. And so we were, as a individuals kind of pulled the entire population of the human race into this. There was at a time where you were a heretic if you thought the world was round. You were basically treated like a flat earther now. If you thought the world was round, you were an idiot. You were burned at the stake. You were locked up. You were locked in prison. Even worse, like flat earthers now just are the brunt of jokes. So if you thought the earth was round, you were a complete asshole, and they were going to make your life miserable for being this complete asshole who thought the world was round. And then eventually, the earth is round.
Okay. You mentioned something very important in this whole thing. And this is where Dr. Hoffman's conscious agent theory gets very radical. He, as you said, he says that organisms that see the truth go extinct competitively against organisms that do not see the truth.
Right.
He's run 200,000 simulations in every time. And I'll explain why that's true. Okay.
Right.
An organism that is programmed just for fitness payoffs. Think about it like this, like a video game. Okay. if your only focus is getting points in the game, you're not looking around in the
Right.
game, you're just focused in scoring points,
Right.
that will get you to the next level.
Right.
The fitness point. If you are trying to look at the truth of the game,
Right.
you know, like, okay, is this really in front of me, or is the truth
Right.
you know, the transistors, the computer?
Is
You
this
know,
game even yeah, is this game a viable reality for anybody?
well, yeah, you're trying to figure out, you know, the reality of the game. Okay,
Right.
well, the person who is focused purely on the game is going to win.
Sure.
Is going.
Yeah,
They're
and
not.
they're not cluttering up their thinking with,
That's it.
what is this thing that we're actually
Right.
looking at and doing?
Right.
If you think
Right.
about it, it's wild. Yeah. Right.
So, so you wonder. Sometimes you may wonder why somebody who seems very shallow becomes very rich.
Oh, I don't wonder at all.
Yeah, because they are totally,
Because they're focused. They're
focused.
not, their minds don't go off into the wilderness.
Right. They're not, wasting time
Right.
thinking about, ecological crisis. They're focused on the game.
Right.
And the game is to win.
Right.
Okay.
The game is getting points.
And get
Go to the
points
next level.
and win.
Yeah.
And that's why people like that are very successful,
Sure.
because they're really not searching for the truth.
Right.
They're searching to win.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that's Dr. Hoffman. Yes, go ahead.
I'm just making an observation that I noticed that about some people that I talk to in Los Angeles who there's a thing where it's like you can't, and this doesn't necessarily have to apply to people who are successful, but let's just say they're artists, an artist type.
Right.
You don't actually stay on a subject for very long. It's like there's this thing where it's like you get like a couple of seconds on one subject, and then you have to like make a joke or change the subject, or oh, what about this, or what about this,
Right.
what about this. You can't actually you can't have an actual conversation that follows like a track, a line down, for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like, and that's kind of how my mind works. I'm like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? What's the next step? And I find it frustrating because I have conversations with people and they're just like, anyways, like they're, it's like, and that's, but I think I think the reason why I say that is because it's a survival mechanism, or it's a thing where it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this subject because that doesn't serve me, that doesn't do anything for me. What serves me is like jumping from, this thing to this thing, to this activity, to this activity, to this job, to this whatever,
But another important thing is that you as an artist, your music, you're kind of searching for the truth, okay,
Sure.
in your music.
Right.
Now, is it paying off big time? I mean, compare it to
no, that's absolutely right. But yeah.
And compare it to the real estate guy or gal who's 100% focused on selling real estate.
Right.
And they're driving around in a Rolls or a Bugatti or whatever, because they're totally focused on, they're not focused on truth. They're
Right.
focused in on the fitness payoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the game.
Yeah.
That is the game. And
right.
that's why we have the human population is, all of them are focused on fitness payoffs, such as buying a house,
but there must be, there must be my argument, I guess, that would be included in the question, a question for Professor
Dr.
Hoffman. My counter, or my argument, or my thoughts around this, and I don't know if he addresses this in any of his videos. I haven't got there yet. If I have, I watched a few. I've taken in a few of his things, but there must be a payoff in the truth, finding the truth of the world is really round, or there must be a payoff in the truth of, there's a payoff in the truth. So two things, two things I wanted to talk about. Have you ever heard the I don't know if it's a myth or if it's real or not, but that like when the boats came, the Mayflower came over from England, that the indigenous people couldn't see the ships because they
Right.
didn't have any
That's
frame of reference for what
exactly.
the fuck that is.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that was
They
when
didn't
when
have
I
the
was listening to
icon
it.
for the ships.
Right. So they couldn't see the ships. They
Right.
could not because they've never seen an icon for something like that.
Right.
And
Right.
on some levels, like there are things that we probably can't see right now, right?
Yes.
There are things that we are looking at, or things that have been in our realm, and we don't even understand
Yes.
what the fuck they are because we don't have any. There's no relevance or relativity for what we're
There's
looking
no
at.
icon for it.
There's no icon for it. So and I've always wondered about that story.
It's
How
true.
true it is, or if that's really real, or if that really was
That is true.
correct.
Because they didn't have the icon for these galleys, these ships.
Right. And I mean, in the same sense, like, because people couldn't like fathom the idea that the earth was round, right? They didn't have an icon for the earth is round, like to go from thinking the earth is flat to it's this huge ball in the sky, and that it might, things might move around it differently. Like that's a big icon to change up on your screen. Like there's
A huge icon on your
yeah,
screen. And that's what he describes. Your perception is as a metaphorically as a computer desktop screen. So I don't want to go too off on a tangent here, but to give you an idea, truth versus not truth. I'm looking at you in my computer, okay? I
right,
see you, red hair, handsome guy, now, are you literally in my computer?
right. No, but
No,
I'm
you're
a
not.
representation of
It's it's an icon of you. You're actually sitting 2,500 miles away in LA. I'm in
right,
Indiana,
right,
and you're seeing an icon of me.
right,
Okay. You're not seeing the whole truth of me. You're just seeing hair, eyes, mouth,
right,
expression, but you don't see the entire, if you saw the entire me, blood vessels, bones,
right,
uh, endocrine system, you wouldn't be able to talk to me and have a productive conversation. You'd be totally overwhelmed with, all this stuff
right,
going on. So it's a simplified, this icon, me, is a simplified representation of my conscious agent talking to your conscious agent to have a productive experience.
right,
Okay. And so he says that based reality, is like a giant Twitterverse of conscious agents interacting
mm,
experiences.
okay,
Okay. That and this is where it might go for some people a little extreme. I need a drink of water.
okay,
Uh, the current science says that space and time, is an objective reality. Okay.
right,
He's proposing a radical thing in saying that consciousness is the base reality, that we actually create space and time.
right,
Okay. That's where it gets
yeah,
kind of out there.
sure,
Okay. So he's saying that consciousness is the base reality, that we're in this kind of giant Twitterverse of all the people we know, all
right,
your subscribers. As you realize, as you look at your comments, they all have icons.
right,
Okay. And they'll have it. And even though that you never met them or seen them, you have a general idea of their consciousness. Like
right,
say you take Book
sure,
Hermit, you know that he doesn't believe in climate change.
right,
You know, that's some information that you glean from just his icon and his comments.
right,
So that's how it's important that reality is kind of hidden from us, is so that we can be productive in what we're doing. if we saw all the reality, you know, me and you wouldn't be able to have this conversation. If I was looking at all the cables, wires, networks, server farms, all that, it would distract me, and I wouldn't be able to discuss with you this.
Right. But, you know, I don't know, on some level for me, so we, you know, with the aid of science and investigation, we have figured out that, you know, we've figured out a lot about how the human body works, or how it is you form words, or, you know, and even Hoffman's talking about, you know, seeing being a big part of our consciousness.
1/3.
We understand that, and yet we don't have to think about that when we're having, you know, when we're going to the store. We don't have to think about, but you know, but the thing is too, is that even, you know, like all of this conscious agent, you know, the whole idea of like the interface thing, it's cool. And does it actually change reality? Like, does it actually affect, you know, I know you're saying that, you know, consciousness is, he's saying consciousness is reality and everything is created out of that, rather than we are a consciousness reacting to reality.
Right. You got it, man.
But the thing is, though, is that the problem with me, though, is I actually, you know, I can see the validity of like the case that he's making, and I also believe in reality. I also believe that there's an objective reality. I do believe there's an objective reality, that like there's nothing else that we have ever known, right? Because we all.
Well, let me say
it doesn't matter why the sky is blue. We all agree that the sky is blue. We all enter this reality. We enter this agreement in reality that the sky is blue, and that's, it's objective, because not only do I see that it's blue, you see it's blue, and so does everybody else. And if somebody saw it as green because their interface, something in their interface was messed up, they couldn't see colors, or
colorblind,
whatever. Fine, we you know, we'd say like, yeah, that's not what everybody else is saying, but you know, you're not, you know, that's not necessarily, you're not wrong, but you're, you know, outside of the consensus of reality.
Okay.
So I give more weight to reality as a consensus based on objectivity, and this actually goes back to what we were just saying, like as Earth being flat or Earth being round, right? There was a consensus that Earth was flat until some people were like, hey, that's actually not the way we see it.
They took measurements.
And because they took measurements, they saw it in a different way. But because the consensus still said Earth flat, these people were not believed for a very long time. And then
but it eventually changed.
Eventually, the consensus saw the truth. The consensus saw objective reality based on measurements. And another example I'll bring up is an airplane. Like, you know, plane travel for centuries, everybody was like, whoa, it'd be cool if we Leonardo da Vinci made drawings of a fucking helicopter, you know, 400 years ago. He knew it could, you know, he had an idea about what it was, the mechanics of it, but they couldn't make it actually happen.
They couldn't make it happen because they didn't have the engineering.
They didn't have the engineering, but they
couldn't make precise machining tools.
But there was also a consensus, a reality consensus, in that, like, flying is not for people. Flying is not something people do. Flying is something the birds do. Wouldn't it be cool if we could fly? And we keep trying until some people got to a point where they were like, oh, we have the measurements. We have the objective reality. We have the physics necessary to make this plane fly, right? And then, you know, once that happened, everybody was like, oh, yeah, you know, it was pretty easy for the rest of the human race to make the consensus happen quickly. Like, yes, plane flight, and we can do it, you know.
And we literally and figuratively built the planes out of our minds, literally and figuratively. I want to get back to where you said
we built them out of our minds, but they were a reaction to physical processes.
And that's why I said they're literally and figuratively. Right. But I want to get back to where you said that you understood Hoffman's conscious agent theory, and that it creates objective reality. But you said that you still believe in objective reality. Okay. that you
Yeah.
understood Hoffman, but you believe that there's an objective reality of LA, of your house, of your dog,
Yeah.
that all those are your street.
Well, there's an objective reality of
Okay.
climate change
Okay.
and of, physical processes happening
Right.
that and here's another thing, like, there's so many people that don't understand the actual science of climate change, right? There's even people that believe climate change is real. They don't understand the actual physical, what's actually happening, right? So it's up, there's a bunch of people trying to say, like, hello, look over here. This is the real reality. It's not very pretty, and I know you don't want to look at it, and it's very difficult to look at it, but here it is. And that is sorry, my mic keeps wanting to say something too, but
Yeah.
there's a sign, there's processes, physical manifestations of what climate change is that we're trying to to communicate to other people that don't necessarily want it to be communicated to them, right? And so
Right.
they are the
So,
they're the flat earthers of whatever this decade or this certain time in history.
okay. So I want to say that basically you have 1 foot planted in Hoffman's conscious agent theory. You're grasping what he's saying, but you
Yeah.
still have your other foot firmly planted in the objective reality.
Yeah.
The world of the objective reality.
Yes.
Around you. So you're
And even his theory is based on empirical, on observation, right? It's not all equations. It's based on observation.
So far, he's done a lot of empirical work in perception, vision, different sorts of, definitely empirical. But as far as the conscious agent theory, it's been mostly mathematical. Okay.
Yeah.
Proven theorems, simulations. Not as empirical as the perception thing. But the thing is that it's hard to think that objective reality could be a total construct of your mind.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's it's hard to think that because of the
implications.
Not
There's
necessarily. Not necessarily. It's hard to think that because you have 2 things, or at least 2 things where I can think of right away, which is you have consensus, reality consensus. You have things that other people can see that you can see, verifying that you're not alone in seeing them. And you also have physical things that impact you in the physical realm, right? Like you have, you can get run over by a train. You can break your foot if you fall off your bicycle.
And that's the same thing.
Those are physical processes acting upon you.
Let's go back to what
you're not acting upon those things.
Let's go back to what you just said. You said you realize that you can be run over by a train. Now you can also realize that if you take this video we just shot and put it in the trash bin,
right,
it's gone, right? Okay, but the question is, does that trash bin on your screen exist? Is it real?
No, it's not. It's not real. It's but the thing is,
icon.
Right,
it's an icon. So you take it seriously, but you do not take it literally. Okay, it's not a little tiny garbage can on your screen. It's an icon, and so you're putting you're taking the video, and if you dump the video in the trash can, it's gone. Okay,
right. But why do you take something? If you, let's say there's a train coming at you and you're on the tracks and you're supposed to take that seriously. Why are you supposed to take that seriously? What's the reason?
Because he's saying that there's something there. It may not necessarily, it may be what you're seeing is an icon of something there.
Right.
Okay. That the objective reality will kill you if you stand in front of it. It won't just pass through you.
Right.
Okay. It will kill you.
Right.
But he's saying that that the objective reality may be something else.
Yeah.
So you're seeing
Yeah.
an icon of a train.
Yeah. I mean, this is, we're getting into stuff that's like,
Metaphysical.
right, metaphysical and pretty, like I actually do have my feet in both realms, where I can completely believe that somebody has the power or um the viewpoint or the understanding of how to manipulate an alchemist, say, like somebody who can manipulate the physical realm.
Well, that's what I want to ask the doctor.
Or and that really, I think that really comes down to, does this have any effect on climate change, or does this have any bearing on climate change? Because if we're talking about manifesting or creating reality,
Right.
then we're talking about creating a different reality around climate change. And are we creating that through a process
Scientific.
are we creating that through changing consciousness? Are we creating that through physical, like, so there's to
Right.
go back to the airplane, somebody didn't go zap, I made an airplane and I can fly now. It was a long shift in consciousness. It was like a
Yeah.
bunch of people tried to fly, failed, but fail over
Right.
hundreds of years. And then eventually, one guy was like, and they tried a bunch of times, fail. Oh, now we're flying, right? So there was this, it was a physical,
But
it
it
was a
still came
physical
out of
and a
here.
conscious shift, right?
It still came out of here, though.
Yeah, but the thing is that they were acted upon by physical forces, and they had to
Okay.
figure out, in their minds, obviously they figured out a way in which to correctly act upon the physical force. But that physical force is still very much there. If you get an airplane today and you don't control that airplane correctly, you're going down. So
Going
like
down.
that's
That's it.
you can't
You failed
consciously
the
keep that
fitness.
plane up in the air. You're not keeping the plane up with conscious.
Right.
You're keeping the plane up with jet fuel,
Right.
and with aerodynamics, and engines, and things that exist in the world, like those,
Right.
that whole, and obviously you can go to sleep tonight and have a dream about flying, and you could consciously be flying,
Yeah.
so both are true at the same time. But I
No.
can't go to sleep and have a dream that climate change was fixed, or we
No,
all
you
saved
can't.
ourselves, because it would still be in my dream unless I stayed
But
there.
it's also in our minds that, and a lot of us, that climate change is on an extremely fast downward path.
Right.
That's in our minds too. So could that be um, manifesting in reality? But also want to mention, importantly, that this is not metaphysics. This is pure science. He's at UC Irvine.
Right.
50 academic peer-reviewed papers. It's not
Right.
woo-woo.
Right.
It can sound like woo-woo, but it's
Yeah.
not woo-woo. Okay.
Well, and there have been, some papers that have come out in the past years. I don't know if Hoffman was a part of them or not, but I have heard, or seen articles that are saying, like, scientists say that we could be living in a matrix, or scientists,
yes,
right? We're living in some created universe. Somebody created it, or we created it, or whatever. That's all.
So
that's all fine and well. That's all fine and well.
Yeah.
But how does that manifest into reality or shared consciousness? How do these things actually manifest in the real world? In the real world, because it is just an idea, and it is like quantum physics or quantum mechanics. It's like an interesting idea that does have applications on some level. But how does that manifest itself?
How does that apply to
the actual world?
To what our concern is, which is the eco crisis? The first thing that you mentioned, that you brought up, is changing the desktop icons from Rolls-Royce, steak dinner, Cancun vacation, to changing the icons to icons that are more applicable to the eco crisis.
Right.
That's one thing.
Right.
Another thing is that we don't fully understand the base reality.
Right.
Okay, so we're kind of like the um, shamans throwing sacrifices into the volcano.
Right.
We're not sure that they're going to work because we don't fully understand the base reality.
Right.
Okay, which Hoffman claims is infinitely large, like Twitterverse or
Yeah.
Facebook,
Right.
with conscious agents interacting. Okay, we still, and even the very top physicists in the world, the very top ones, they use this terminology, which is space and time is doomed, meaning that our current basic science, our scientific model of space and time and materialism,
Yeah.
okay, um, that's got to change. It's not working. It's
Right.
that space time, general relativity, is not meshing with quantum mechanics. They just can't get them to mesh.
Mm.
Okay, so this is quotes from top physicists that space and time is doomed in the sense that it's going to be replaced with something different, something new, a new theory, which I happen to believe is conscious agent theory.
How soon do you think we can do that? How soon do you think that might happen? In a relative to the time that we might or might not have left.
Okay, let me you know, I hate to be disappointed, but I'll give you an example. Einstein came up with general relativity in 1905.
Right.
He mapped out the framework of general relativity, and it wasn't till I believe till 2015 or 2020 that, or not 2020, 1915, 1919, that they confirmed his theory at a what do you call it, eclipse. They took
Right.
some telescopes, they made measurements of the gravitational lensing, and that confirmed that general relativity is the correct theory, that it redefined science. They
Right.
changed it from Newtonian gravitational model to general relativity. So it took about 10 years to do that,
Right.
and have general relativity accepted as the most truthful, most vertical science.
Right.
So I'm just giving a best guess.
So maybe 10 years.
Maybe
I
maybe
mean,
sooner, but that was 1905. Things
right.
go a lot faster now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, ideas uh can literally like go around the world pretty quickly.
Speed of light.
Yeah. And it is also incumbent on the people receiving those ideas. I
Yep.
think there's something happening as far as like, there's a consciousness shift kind of due to the rise in communication and the internet shift.
Right. Right.
But this consciousness shift is only available to the people who are willing to open themselves up to the information, right? So it's like
Yeah.
there are people who are like, let's go, we're ready to just move out there and like expand. And there's a lot of people who are like, I'm good just watching cute cat videos. I'm okay to,
Yeah.
I don't want to know too much. Don't, the internet, we can't get our news from the internet. We need to do it from the trusted people on the TV screen, because we just, I don't know. That's the thing, is there's a, there are people who are using this access to information to, to take a great leap forward, if you will, in consciousness. And there's, hopefully that they will be able to do it fast enough and communicate it well enough that they can kind of like drag the human race forward pretty quickly, but depending on how many people are willing to go along, because there's a lot of people that are not willing to go along.
Yeah, you kind of brought up something in my mind that I wanted to talk to you about. It's kind of a non sequitur, maybe for another show, on why I think that climate denial and the lies like of people like Tony Heller is not covered by the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Hmm.
It's not
Okay.
protected speech. Basically, along the lines, it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater.
Right.
That by these lies are causing an existential threat to humanity, and it goes beyond just
Yeah.
speech.
I think we might have to leave that for another video because
Another video,
I could really go
mention
off on that for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Right. So we'll
Yeah.
do
And
that.
actually, I've got to end this one now because we're over an hour.
Okay.
And I'm about to lose power, and you know, I think we got pretty deep into it. Maybe we'll do this again
Yes.
pretty soon, and
Yes.
we'll cover.
Let's do it again.
Okay.
We'll take it
Yeah.
from here, man.
All right. Appreciate you coming on, Val. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this show. You know, thanks for tuning in. And I think I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow. That's Friday, probably like noon. So we'll see you tomorrow about noon. Thanks a lot, Val. See you next time.